Hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Let's face it, a place whereby parents and families of children with autism or ADHD can come and learn helpful tips and ideas, and also to share ideas and tips as to how you cope with certain aspect of life. In other words, it is my aim or it is my hope to create a safe space, because autism is such a sensitive topic and it's so near and dear to my heart. And if I feel a particular way about my child, I am assuming that there are other parents who feels a particular way about their child or children, and they will love to be in a space that's considered safe, helpful, and warm. So this week we're going to be talking about sharing the diagnosis with extended friends and family. Yikes, yikes. This is very, very important, and I'm saying this from experience because I wouldn't want for anyone to experience the same dilemma or stress or poor encounters that I have had with not sharing or with not communicating with others before taking my child into a particular social settings. And I'm speaking and my tummy is churning because I can't help but to remember some very poor experiences that I've encountered from extended friends and family. At this interval, I am no longer angry. I am no longer bitter, because the Lord, and when I said the Lord, I mean it from the core of my being. The Lord has transformed my heart, and he has caused me to heal mostly. So I have since overcame some of those poor experiences that I encounter. But I kid you not, those were experiences that I held on to for years, and it made me angry, and it made me bitter, and it made me quite antisocial. So back in the days, I never used to take my daughter out to social events because of that one experience that I have. I have several experiences, but that one experience stood out to me, and I'm gonna get to it in a few. But I would say for everyone, the experience is different, right? For, like I would say, no one situation looks alike, or everyone's situation, bottom line, everyone's situation looks different and everyone cope differently. To be honest with you, I never told anyone in my extended family or associates about my daughter. Like, I only shared it with persons that I consider to be close with, or I consider to be safe with. And one of the very poor experience I had was with a family member. And this family member, I'm trying not to get emotional. Well, I guess I'm not healed as I think I am, or I don't think I have overcame it as I thought I did. But it's good that I'm getting it out here. This family member, I shared the diagnosis about my daughter, and apparently this family member, they took the diagnosis and they went and they spoke negatively behind my back about me and about my child. No, for me, I don't care. I'm an adult. I'm strong. I'm very gritty. I'm very like, I'm tough. I'll consider myself to be a very sturdy individual. In other words, I'm made of a lot of grits, like, so you can't necessarily hurt me so easily. But what got me angry or what got me upset was that trusted, so-called trusted family member that I shared it with went behind my back and shared it with others before I was comfortable with sharing it. Not only that, that individual spoke about my child negatively. And it broke my heart because that family member has a child that's like special needs, but it's not autism. I think the child actually is someone that I love. Up to this day, I love that child. I love that child so much. Her child is like near and dear to my heart. Her situation was that she was a preemie, right? So you know that preemies, you know, situations developmentally can become complicated. And I love that child. I poured into that child. I accepted that child as my own. At the time, we were very close. So whenever I like to spend time with the child, even though I become a mommy, I never forgot the child. I wanted to still maintain a relationship with that child. So my ex-husband and I will journey all the way to a particular location to get the child and bring her up to spend time with us. So the relationship in my head, I thought it was, it was good. I thought it was great. And, we love upon that child. We took care of that child, and it was a bit, it wasn't a bit. I was a bit distraught. I was a bit heartbroken when I found out that this relative of mine was speaking negatively and derogatory about my child appearance, about my child diagnosis. And they went as far to say, oh, our mother behave as if she is, well, I have to speak as proper as I can, but I'm into my Jamaican dialect now. Our mama go on like say she a good as, our mama go on like say she the best thing, and look there she have a child that is autistic, or she have a child with a handicap. What? When I heard that, it was like it was like a dagger to my heart, a dagger to my heart. And that was like one of the reasons why I had kept my child, because I became extra protective. I do not go out with my child. I do not take my child out. I do not take my child out to social events. I don't do anything because I'm ultra protective of my child. Not only that, separate and apart from that unfortunate family situation that I had or had experienced, sometimes when I take my child outside, they treated her away. So when my child initially, when I got my child diagnosis, my child, she was very hyper. My child, she made very abnormal sounds. It was like very hard to deal with. She would be like, ooh, there are different days. Different days I get different things, different moments, and it's like kind of hard reliving it now because my child, she no longer does all of those stuff based on the things that I've done, as that will be outlined in my book that I authored. And she no longer operates like that ever. But I'm saying this to say, like, it was very hard. I remember another sad incident. I live upstate New York. So I don't know. It's like at one point I was wondering if my house is cursed or something. Because every winter, like for every winter you could think of, I get frozen pipes. And getting frozen pipes means that, like, frozen pipes mean that, like, yeah, I have to basically evacuate my home and go to a hotel. And I think I went to a hotel nearby in my community, and I had a very poor experience because my daughter, she didn't understand spaces. She didn't know that she's not supposed to like go around this. So my daughter, like when I take her to stores, which I hated because of this poor experience that I have at the hotel, like she went, all my child did, very hyperactive, very not knowing, she's in her own world, and she went around the receptionist desk. Now, I'm an African American woman with an African American child, and to have a Caucasian individual shouts at my child. At this time, she would have been probably like 3, 3 or 2 plus, going on 3. And I have this individual shouted at my child as though she was a piece of garbage. It didn't sit well with me. I took actions. I called the headquarters. I called the manager. I raised hell on behalf of my child. Long story short, I was refunded. I even sought legal advice at the time. I was refunded every penny that I paid to that hotel, and I immediately checked out into another hotel whereby I felt it was safe and accommodating for my child circumstances. So I've had so many experiences here and there, and I'm saying this to say, in retrospect, what I would do different, instead of hiding away my child like I did, or not going to social functions or doing social activities with my child, I would have made it known. I would have spoken to families, I would have spoken to friends, I would have given them advance notice to say, hey, this is my child, this is what she's going through, this is how she behaves, this is how she processes. So if you see her do or say a certain things or make certain moves or actions, please be considerate of her situation. Please note that she's not being rude or misbehaving intentionally. Another poor experience that I have was at an event. A friend invited me home, to her home, and this is what hurts me, because like when I'm up and I'm going like when I'm on, like I would say, when I'm in the prime of my time socially and financially, my home or my place of business is a safe place for everyone. Like Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever events is going on, as long as I'm good and I'm mentally up and I'm socially in tune, my home, there's no limits. My home is welcome. There's no limitations. Like if I'm cooking, I am very exquisite, I'm very extra. When I'm cooking like Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'm doing lobster, I'm a seafood fanatic. I'm doing lobster, I'm doing fish, I'm doing the most expensive meals. I'm going all the way out because I'm extra. So when I am hosting, right? When I'm hosting events at my home, there's no limitation. My friends or my guests, they can eat, they can take, they can do whatever it is that they want to do. And I'm the type of individual, I don't require anything of anyone to bring to my home. So if I'm hosting you and I tell you pull up on me, trust and believe you're gonna be taken care of. Everything is gonna be at my home, and you could leave and you could feel filled, and you could feel welcome. You'll feel great. You will never leave my home feeling like you were a bother, feeling like you were a burden, feeling like you were not welcome or you overstayed your welcome. You'll never get that from me. Before I give you that, I will not invite you to my home. And I'm getting a little welled up, emotional. Yeah, I'm crying. Like, thinking about it, I'm hurt. Because I'm saying to myself, I'm that type of friend. When I'm on my up, when I'm doing well, when I'm, doing well financially and also emotionally and mentally, everyone is welcome to my home and I'll show you a grand time. However, fast forward, couple of years came, my daughter diagnosis. I became antisocial. I no longer celebrated. There was a lot of things, like I took life. I was extra. I took it very deeply. I no longer celebrated Christmas. I no longer celebrated Thanksgiving. I no longer, anything that has to do with celebration, I don't celebrate, because I'm like, what am I celebrating? I stopped celebrating life. Was it healthy? No. Was it the correct thing to do? No. But like I said, everyone processes things differently and deals with things differently. That's just how I dealt with it. Let me get to the point. I had this one friend that I'm no longer friends with, obviously. But I have this one friend that would usually visit my home in the good times, in the grand times, that I would usually share and be great with everything. And that one friend invited me to her home, because she later purchased a home up this side where I live. And that friend, she invited me to her home, and I was like, I'm not going nowhere. I said, no, I'm not going. And at the time, I was heavily pregnant. Mind you, I was heavily pregnant with my second child. So I didn't want it to be bothered. But because I considered my friend at the time, so I'll refer to this person as my ex-friend. Because I consider my ex-friend like family at the time, like, I didn't care. I showed up with my mom. I showed up with my big belly. I showed up with my big belly, because I was pregnant at the time. I was heavily pregnant and I was miserable. And I showed up with my child. I showed up with Aliana. And I think Aliana, at this point, Aliana would have been probably like approximately 6 or 7, thereabouts, And Aliana, I must admit, Aliana's behavior was atrocious. It wasn't the best behavior. Aliana was climbing up the roofs. She was in, she was out. She was like, my daughter was all over the place. And if you have a child with autism, or if you have a child with ADHD, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So she was having like a lot of meltdown, and I must admit, it was very hard to deal with. And if you don't understand what's going on with the child, you're gonna look down on the child, you're gonna talk down on the child. So anyways, my child, she was getting the stares, like they were giving her the look, like, so they were like, what's going on here, and whatever. And I remember at one point, my friend's partner, he was kind of like, he shouted at her. And at that point, I was pregnant. I had a great amount of respect for this guy, because of course that's my friend's partner, and I respected him, and I loved them. So I taken them as family. So when I saw that he shouted at her, I said to him, I pulled him over, and I said to him, please don't shout at her. She doesn't understand. And he said to me, what you mean by she doesn't understand? And I said to him, she has autism. God bless his soul. When I said to him that she has autism, his entire aura and his entire demeanor changed. So this is the reason why I'm saying that you guys must announce your child's situation before you take them into certain public space or social settings. I'm so upset. My words, bear on with me. So when I told this person, my friend's partner, about her diagnosis, he became immediately concerned and he apologized to me. And he said, wow, I didn't know that's what's happening with her. And I said, yes. And this person so happened to be a doctor. So he said to me, I'll never forget, it's kind of like a mixed experience, kind of like a mixed emotion, but I'll always remember this person in a very good way. So as a doctor, he said to me, and I think there was another guest at the party, both of them. So this guest who was at the party, she has a child that's special needs, but he's like an adult child that's special needs. And she came over because she saw the engagement between me and the doctor, and she came over and she consoled me because at the time I was very, you know, when you're heavily pregnant and you're miserable and you know you see someone shouting at your child and then you have different people shouting at your child, come get her, come this, come that. So I was on the verge of leaving the home, and they had, you know, they had talked to me and said, don't leave, you know, we know, now that we know what's going on, it's okay. So my friend's partner and the lady, another party guest, well, later became cool with, or you know, we became good associate for a while. You know, they had both recommended to me, which, you know, the doctor, he was like, you know, Sushana, I think you should put her on medication. And I was like, you know, I was reluctant. And I was like, no, I'm not put her on a medication. I'm not put Pitney on a medication. Like if you're from the Jamaican community or the Caribbean community, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna immediately deny or reject the idea of medication. But then he said to me, Sushana, do you realize that you're heavily pregnant? And I said, yes, I realize that. He said, do you realize, I'll never forget his words. He said to me, do you realize that you need peace? And I said, yes. And he said, I'm observing her. I've been observing her even before you told me what's wrong with her. At this space, she wouldn't be able to learn at school because she doesn't sit still. She's always, you know, she's busy. So I said yes. And then the other person at the party, she was there gently whispering in my ears. She's such a sweet person. God bless her soul. I really had a lot of love for that lady. But she was there and she spoke with me and she was like, yes, Shauna. Because, you know, they got my name and she was like, yes, Shauna, you should do it. You should listen to the doctor. And let me tell you. And then she went on to tell me about her son and the experience that she had with him. And she said, I know that we Jamaicans don't like to hear about medication, but it's best. She said, do me this favor. Monday morning, because you was like over the weekend, whatever the party. I don't remember when it was the party. It was some party, but I go. Reluctantly, I go. And then I somewhat regret it, but then again, I somewhat appreciate it. You know, it was kind of like mixed emotions. So the lady and the doctor, they had spoken to me and they told me that. So the lady, it was mostly the lady that convinced me. The doctor, he was good. God bless his heart. I appreciated his concern and his recommendation. But the lady, I had connected with her more because she has a child who was actually at the event, but he's an adult. And, you know, he was regulated, unlike my child. My child was unregulated. But she shared with me the challenges that she used to have with him at school at different places. And she said once she put him on the mildest or the lowest dose, I never forget her words. She said, Shauna, put this girl on the lowest dose of medication so that you can have some peace. You're heavily pregnant and this is not healthy for you and the baby. So put her on medication. I was reluctant about it. But then I thought about it, and one thing the doctor said is that if she's operating like this and if she's always like this, even if you have her in a special needs school, she cannot learn. And I recall I usually have so many calls from the schools. She was on the verge of being expelled because she was just doing so much. It was a lot. And I was like, to be honest, long story short, I caved in and I listened to their recommendation. And then I put my daughter on the lowest dose of medication. I reached out to her developmental pediatrician and I requested it. And of course, they asked me a bunch of questions, blah, blah, blah. That lady, that doctor, she was very methodological. She didn't just run and gave me medication. She gave it to me. And to be honest, it helped. The lowest dose of medication helped. She started learning. She started calming down. I no longer have rampant complaints about her. So going to that party led me to meeting a very nice lady, which I consider to be an earth angel up until this day. We no longer communicate, but whatever guidance and whatever help she provided me in the moment that I needed it, it started my journey of being a more involved mom, a more, it helped me to move from point A to point B for my child. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. But I'm saying this to say is that going to that party, it was like a double-edged sword. It was double-edged because, one, I never appreciated how my friend treated my child or looked at my child, or the stares that was given to my child. And my friend, she knew everything, but like the stares and like, in other words, I didn't feel like my child was treated appropriately or correctly at the event. Though I had that bad experience, I had also had a great experience from it because I met this lady and I also had the exchange with my friend's partner who's a doctor. So that kind of helped. But I noticed I never got invited back to my friend's home. And to be honest, if I was ever re-invited, I would have never showed up. I will never go. And this event occurred like years. My child is now 11. So I would say approximately 5 years ago, this event happened. And I will never take back my child in that space. In fact, I don't have that friendship anymore. And I wouldn't say that was solely the reason. I don't even know what is. But for me, it was like, okay, well then, I can't be cool or I can't be friendly with someone who have my child, or I don't know. It was just, it's an uncomfortable place. When it comes on to my child, I don't negotiate, and I will never forget the way how I felt or that person made me felt or looked at my child. And it was just a lot. But sorry about that long story, but it needs to be shared. And if depending on the journey that you're on, this can prevent you from taking your child into social places or social spaces, close friends or family, without explaining it to them. Hey, I kid you not, if I wasn't pregnant, maybe I would fight like Come on, because there were so many bad things that happened at that party, and I just wanted to go. But there are a lot of persons who saw my frustration and they didn't want me to drive because I'm pregnant and angry. So they calmed me down and ensured that I was good and calm and collected before I left. So that's that. As to whether you want to share it and who you want to share it to, that's your business. That's your decision. Whether you want to share it with extended friends or whether you want to share it with extended family, that's really up to you. But I think the takeaway from this video is you should try and have a conversation with persons who will interact with your child. Again, try and have conversations with persons who will interact with your child. The process is very hard. It's kind of like, for me, initially it was embarrassing to talk about, so I don't speak to no one about it. And I guess most people in my family, they will learn about this because I am now authoring a book 11 years later because of the poor experience that I have with the family member that spoke negatively about my child behind my back, and also the poor experience I encountered at a friend's home that's aware of my child's circumstances. And I basically felt as though the friend didn't do as much or stand up as much or showed my child enough compassion or loved or understanding. So I became hyper isolated. I isolated. I know I don't even share my child on social media anymore. I am very protective of my child. And I'll only share occasionally when I feel like it, but I don't share because I felt previously as though my child is already struggling. So to have so much negative energy and outside say and outside energy coming at my child, I just couldn't deal with that. And monitoring spirits, I became a little bit more spiritual. So I started being protective of my children. Like, yeah, I'm very protective of my children. I don't post and do much with them. I am very protective and I keep them to myself. So the ways in which you can share it with your friends and families, you could not everybody off the bat, especially in the Caribbean community, not everybody gonna know what autism is. If you say to them, oh, you know that the child is special needs or she have autism, they're gonna be like, what is autism? For me, explaining it over and over to different individuals was triggering. So what I would do is that, like, if somebody say, Shana, what is autism? What is that? I'll just send them an article, like, off the internet. I'll send them like a YouTube video. I will send them a text because, I'm quite emotional. And if you look closely, I'm welled up with tears. Like, I was quite emotional about the matter. So I will choose that option. So I could recommend that you could do that too. So you could probably send like videos with the all on the topic of autism. You could send like articles on the topic of autism. Like if you have grandparents and if you have aunts and uncles, you could also discuss it with them or send the same videos to them. Or you could basically create like a group of people who you consider to be trustworthy, caring, kind, and compassionate. You could create a group and you could just share it in that group all at once instead of doing it individual. by individual, that hurts even more. So I'll recommend doing it as a group, and I'll recommend that you set criterias or communication standards in that group. You could ask that they not share it with persons who you don't wish for it to be shared with. So, you know, you can create your own standards or your own rules as to how you want this information to be displayed or shared about your child. Wow, this is a very emotional week for me. It's a lot to get out, but I'm saying this to say, please ensure that you speak with others before you take your child around them, especially if your child is seriously hyperactive, as my child was. And thanks to the book that I've authored, if that's where your child is at, you could possibly get a copy of my book, and you could possibly share it with a friend or family member that you know that's experiencing what my child experienced and what your child or family member may be experiencing currently. One last thing I want to cover regarding sharing it with friends and family. Grandparents, they're such sweethearts. They really like the idea of being there for their grandchildren and doing activities with their grandchildren. When you do share it with whomever, you have to ensure that you select good caregivers, good therapists, and that will cover in another video. But yeah, just take away from this is, please do your due diligence by sharing your child's situation in advance before you get into a social setting or in a social group. If you know that that community or that social group is low tolerance or ignorant, do not take your child around them, because then you're gonna be scarred and your child is gonna somehow be scarred too. Irrespective of the fact that our children are special needs, they are human and they are very smart and they sense and they know. So I'll implore on you to communicate to whomever it matters with, and whoever your child will interact with, either on a care basis or a social basis. Just communicate. God bless you. See you next week.